Okay, good morning. Excuse me. I almost said good morning. Good evening, everyone. This is Ron. I hope and trust you had a good day so far. A little after 6, so it's time for us to get started. Uh, Last couple of sessions, we've really sort of talked about the storm, really, and kind of voiced some things and where we are. Uh, but I just kind of feel that energy still out there a little bit. Is there anything or anybody about this since you had a chance to kind of look at this hurricane here and the aftermath of it, and any thoughts or concerns or anything cross your mind? Anybody? Okay.
Hey, Ron, this is Valerie.
Hey, Valerie.
Hey, just had a question. What do trees symbolize? Do they? I mean, it's like so many. Uh, a lot of them fell, and I'm like, is there anything spiritual behind trees?
That is an excellent question, Val. Class, anybody? What do you guys think about that? We've talked about trees before. What do you guys think?
Hey Ron, this is Audrey. Yeah, I think we talked about
Hey,
this a long time ago. But anyway,
yeah,
but what I remember is um something I can't remember where, maybe Isaiah, Jeremiah, somewhere in those books. Um the the pine tree and the myrtle tree were um promises of um goodwill um and that God was with you. So if I'm remembering
yeah.
that correctly. But
And
so
and there was something. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
I am basically, go ahead.
No, I remember Sheldon talked about something about the cedar trees, because they build the temple or something they did with the cedar trees, and we talked about the cedar trees as well. Uh, I remember the Hebrewic definition or looking at tree means to stand firm. Uh, but I'm like you. Each one, a different type, has a meaning of its own. So,
Uh, they do, but
Pastor,
also
yeah,
tree, what we talked about when we did that, we talked about how trees talk to each other.
yeah,
If a tree is diseased, they send a chemical message to the other trees, let them know to prepare for what is to come. Um, there are innumerable spiritual connotations when it comes to trees. It's something that we probably would have to visit again in terms of um, doing some deeper reading to
mhm,
bring to our memory the things that we talked about. But they do have a deep spiritual meaning. If you think about that whole concept of the tree of knowledge, or the tree that's uh, what is it in Psalms where it talks about the tree that's planted by the waters. Uh,
yeah.
it doesn't say a sapling, it says a tree, which is a full grown tree. So all of those have spiritual meanings, but I'm not prepared at this moment. Maybe someone else is to speak about it with maybe the depth that Val is searching for.
I'm just remembering bits and pieces when you said that we talked about photosynthesis and the trees being fed by the sun, and it absorbs all that energy so that it can not only feed itself in the winter, but it feeds other trees in the winter. We talked about that part. Uh,
And
something else, I'm sorry, go
it
ahead.
is oxygen. It transforms carbon dioxide into oxygen.
Yeah, yeah. I
So,
mean, we could go on, and like you said, I think we're just scratching the surface. Because I'm thinking too uh, about how much trees help with soil erosion, uh, and
yeah,
that sort of thing. Putting that together with soil and earth being consciousness, that all of those are mysteries or hidden meanings behind them. So yeah, that's just some of what we see, but I'm sure there's a lot more out there. Is there anybody else?
I know the law of one talks about trees, and it talks about um, after human beings, trees are the I forget the exact words, but trees are the most um, the mm, trees are the being that most exemplifies the glory of God after humans, something to that effect.
Okay.
also,
Because of
I'm s-
because of the way they reach for the sun, and because of how they use the sun to make food and all of that. Yeah, all of that is part of it.
And the roots in the darkness too.
well, and, and the idea of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which means that the reason it's so difficult to bring balance to an imbalanced place is because of the depth of the roots of good and evil. Um, how the roots have taken um, up space within the mindset of humanity, that it becomes a task to override the depth of those roots and the strength of them in order to bring balance, which means that to move us to a place of being one with the tree of life, which has even deeper roots than that of good and evil. So there are
Yeah.
multiple things there.
I thought too in the question about a house I saw last week uh, that had looked like it wasn't right dead in the middle, but almost in the middle of the house. A big oak fell on it. I mean, a huge tree. And I thought, these are trees that you would not normally think to see that would succumb to spiritual things, is what I looked at it as. And that means monuments or the strongholds in the earth maybe tumbling down. The wind brought them down. Trees that normally have stood for centuries, and laws and principles of darkness or evilness have stood for centuries, and maybe those are symbols of them tumbling. So there's a lot there.
It really is.
Yeah.
Hey,
But
Pastor, it's the passage in the Bible when Jesus was spit in the mud and mixed it all up and put it across the man's eyes and asked that man, "What do you see?" He said, "I see men as trees." So what is that saying?
Um, good question, Charles. I'll just go tell you what the answer is.
I'll take a stab at it, Charles. Um, I think there was a physical part to it as well as a spiritual part. Because if this man was blind all his life, and then he saw people for the first time, standing, he may have had an impression of men looking like trees. But I think the spiritual side of it, maybe that he had an impression of men as trees, meaning standing firm and holding on to that, and having roots and holding on to that certain truth of the Creator. Okay, take it away, Pastor.
And I agree with what Audrey said, that it being representative of the truth of spirituality, because if you look at the role that they made for Jesus, it was a role that was based upon the writings of the Kemites, and they were the sacred writings of spirituality. And if you look at the comparison between those two, it would definitely speak to the whole concept. I see men as trees, which means that I don't see I'm not seeing clearly the role of men in the earth, or seeing clearly that men are as rooted in the earth as are the trees. The trees are stable, but men aren't. There's more stability in the tree than it is in men, because men will waver with the wind. Men are uprooted by the wind, meaning that if the wind is strong enough, if the doctrine is manipulative enough, it will uproot you from what you believe or what you thought the truth was, and move you to a different place. However, when you are rooted in truth, then regardless of how hard the wind blows, it is impossible to move you from that if indeed you are truly rooted in that truth.
I like that, Charles. I bet. Any questions?
No, I just thank Red for that, because that's what he had said the last time when everyone had spoken on trees in that scripture, when he took it and told us. Now, what about when at the beginning God told Adam and Eve? No, he told Adam he can eat from any tree in the garden except the tree of good and evil, a tree of knowledge.
Tree of life.
So there were many trees in the garden that he could eat from.
Yeah.
And he could eat from the tree of knowledge. So help me to understand that about the trees.
That's simply talking about the fruits of this earth consciousness, as well as the fruit of spirituality. The fruit of earth consciousness is the tree from which we have eaten, and it has bound us to earth consciousness, which is controlled by religion and misconceptions about who God is and who humanity is. When we talk about the tree of life, we're talking about the true essence and nature of who the Creator is, and what our relationships are supposed to be with the Creator, and that our primary interaction is to be with spirituality rather than earth consciousness, because our role is to be one with the tree of life so that we are equipped to bring into the earth realm the same as it is above, and that is a dominance of righteousness and spirituality. That's the best I can do.
I can handle that.
Thank you.
Now I got another question too, Reb. What is a juniper tree? What do that tree represent?
I have no clue, Charles. I honestly don't have a clue. Someone may be able to look it up as we talk, but I would not even endeavor to give a response to that because I have no clue.
Okay.
Ron?
Good.
Charles, you
One
finished?
other question.
I'll get ready to say anyone else probably know, could they tell me?
I know. What you
Charles,
say?
I don't know what it means, but I know the berries are medicinal. That's all I know.
Okay.
Huh. Sounds like a good topic though for us one day to take a look at trees. Um, yeah, I think Val opened up something here. Not sure if we quenched your thirst as far as what you're looking for. Hope so.
I thank you all for your responses.
Okay.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah.
Not
You're
not
welcome.
only that, God used a certain type tree to make that boat too, in Noah's time.
Mm-hmm. I think it's safe to say, and I like the question. I think you open up a whole new thing for us here, new our journey. But all things in nature have spiritual connections to man. Uh, so especially trees, I guess. But uh, again, I mentioned to you guys last week about this little book I was reading about this little small tribe in Africa. And one of the things that she mentions is the spirit of the waters, the spirit of the mountains, the spirit of the trees. And all of them have a role to play in being one with who we are. And those are things, at least in the Western world, until now we have taken for granted. But our studies are opening our minds to this whole new way of thinking, new mindset, new spiritual vision that we're seeing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Good evening, Ron. Good evening, everybody. This is GC. And when you were speaking in reference to, about the trees, and at the same time, in terms of the waters, in Jeremiah chapter 17, verses 7 and 8, and I'm actually reading from the Message Bible, but it says, "But blessed is the man who trusts me, God, the woman who sticks with God. They are like trees replanted in Eden, putting down roots near the rivers. Never a worry through the hottest of summers, never dropping a leaf. Serene and calm through droughts, bearing fresh fruit every season." And I just wanted to read those two scriptures because I think it relates to maybe what we're talking about now in terms of when you talk about nature as far as trees and water and how it all works together for the good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that.
And get your stuff on the grant.
I'm done.
The grant says what you can and can't get. And that's what she was
Grant.
saying.
Kathy, Linda, we hear you.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Based on what George just read, it sounds to me like trees represent balance. Because, for example, like sequoia trees, how did they're like hundreds of feet tall, but they don't fall over unless something gets them off balance. In the case of the hurricane got a lot of trees off balance. But it seems to me that it is the quintessential epitome of balance.
I can see that.
Because because if you're true to who you are and what you know, then nothing knocks you over or nothing upsets you, and you keep producing fruit, like George was saying in the scripture. So it sounds to me like it represents balance in that regard.
And you're continuously nourished because you're by the rivers of water. You're a tree, not a sapling. It's a sapling, though.
So how would the soil play in that if the trees be off balance? Because, you know, you got some rich soil, you got some red dirt, you know, soil, and then you got some different types. You see some kind of brown looking, some black. So how would that come into play?
All trees adapt to the soil that they are planted in.
And don't forget, we talked about this. Trees pass nutrients to each other.
Yeah.
Those trees that George talked about was a comparison to man. So the fruit is not for the trees, for everybody that needs to eat, and not just for the trees, rather. I love this. Thank you, George. Anyone else?
You're welcome.
I just want to share something with you. And like I say, we talked about some of this stuff last week, or at least I introduced you to it. And my phone was acting up, but we had to cut it short. But everything that we looked at from feminine masculinity, which you guys know we've talked a lot about, I think the things that caught us off guard. And first, before we go forth, let me say this. I found this little book because I am interested in feeling experiencing natural life in Africa. I want to know what it feels like day to day. I want to know what it feels like when they get up in the morning and how they see trees and how they're one with the rivers and with the insects and the birds and how they love each other, what a community looks like to them. I want to know what education feels like, what it truly means to be from a Kabbalah. So I'm kind of on a quest to look for things, and I really think this little book is a gem. So when I read things, it is from a little small village in what did I say, Western Africa. And George, you guys can help, you and Levon can help out too, since you guys have the book already. But
Pastor, I'm gonna have to get off. I gotta go do something.
Okay. Okay, dear.
okay.
All right.
Have a
Enjoy
good
the
day. But it's the Gari people, and from Ghana and Ivory Coast, and little small group. So it is not talking about even all of Africa, all of the land, or even the coast that they're from. Although it does talk about interacting with other villages or communities, but I like the energy that I feel from this book. And so when I talk about the gatekeepers, which we know as homosexuals, I'm not saying that all African people have these views, or the masculine and feminine energy, and some of the things I told you how that they do to enhance their relationships, or the menstrual cycle of a woman. I'm not saying everybody sees these the same way, but I like the way they see it. I like the way they think outside of the box. And it is not religious, but everything every part of their lives is spiritual. And they're connected, and nothing is of damage. Nobody is damaged because they're having a cycle. Nobody is damaged because they're this way or that way. So that's the beauty of this to me, and why I think it's so valuable, at least where we are right now. Anyway, so any questions before I get into any of this? Anything? Anybody? Okay. Like I say, stop and ask a question if you desire to. And I'm trying to see where's a good place to start. I don't want to. And George and Levon, I know you guys have some stuff you want to discuss as well. So.
Yeah, Ron, I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. It's an excellent book to read, and what really resonated with me was, Soulmate talking about the spirit of intimacy. And I think that in terms of just being able to have that relationship with the Creator, and being able to know that, our experience or my experience is not something that's just private, but it's something that really embraces all of us when we talk about, to embrace, the community. And I know we spoke about unity, we spoke about the oneness in terms of who we are. And it really made me appreciate, the importance of having others to be supportive with regards to how we continue to evolve, as spirit beings. And even though Somi spoke of it with regards to their tribe, however, it still relates to all of us in terms of how we look at our families, how we deal with relationships, how we deal with respecting humanity, in that way that we can learn and appreciate that all of us have a divine purpose and not being judgmental, in terms of just looking at it from the masculine perspective or the feminine perspective, but appreciating the balance. And we heard that word earlier today. We talked about balance, but that's what she talks about. When there's times that something needs to be decided, is not just the women come together, but there's also that male that would be engaged or involved, and vice versa. So I think that it really gave a perspective of how this tribe deals with relationships, which is important, and how they not being judgmental about their own individual perspective, if that makes sense.
You're right, Georgia. There's nothing they don't embrace. I was reading part of you. You can help me with this. If you remember this particular story, she talks about you get up in the morning, and if somebody walks up to you and say good morning, how are you, or how was your night, or do you, if you say I don't feel so good, or I didn't sleep well, something, they want to know why. And not only do they want to know why, they're going to call a council meeting. They want to sit down with you and find out what happened. Why aren't you rested? Is it something with the family? Are you ill? So every little part of life is unison. It's all togetherness. And that's what they're saying is if there's one little thing wrong in the community, it throws off the whole balance for everybody. And that to me is just awesome.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. I'm sorry, this is Mel. So it sounds to me as it exemplifies living the life of Mayats. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, Vermel, it does resonate in that way. When we talk about, ancient systems, and we speak of Mayat in terms of not just the 7 principles, but looking at the 42 laws of Mayat, where I think it's utterance number 26 that says, I will not turn away from truth or righteousness. And so in terms of the Dagara tribe, those are all principles that they talk about in terms of like a ritual or a way of living where they call to the spirit. And so, the spirit, is the essential point of, what's the right word? Including the spirit in all that they do, but that's the point of emphasis. What is the spirit saying to us, and how do we appreciate letting the spirit be our guide? I don't know if that helps a little bit, but it does relate to the principles, with regards to their tribe.
Well, see, the key, George, I think that what you're saying, I understand totally what you want to talking about. But one thing I want us to keep in mind too, we talk about the principles of Mayat, but I'm very concerned about many people who hear this from us. They hear it as a lesson, but they don't hear it as a requirement from the Creator. Because they keep on doing the same stuff. They mistreat people. They talk down to people. They think they're better than people. They're jealous of people. They create issues between other people, and they play people off against each other. All these things that happen in day-to-day life, but yet when we come together on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, we all Mayat it out. But during the course of our lives, that's not happening. And that's dangerous. not dangerous for those who are committed, but exceptionally dangerous for those who plan the game. This is not a game. This is real. So either you're going to treat people the way you want to be treated, you're going to stop playing this European mindset game, or you're going to die. You're going to die to everything that we are talking about, meaning that there's not going to be any more interest in you for it, or you're going to physically die. But this game, this is not a game to be played. We are living in tedious times. And this is no more of a game than what's happening in Gaza. People are dying because of the European mindset that some of you on this line is playing with. This is not a game. Check yourself. Because I'm going to tell you something. If you don't check yourself, if I cover you, I'm going to check you. And you may not like how I check you because I'm not going to cut any corners. If we don't get it right on this line, how can we expect humanity to get it right? Does that make sense, Muriel?
Yes, it does.
Because this was your question initially. And the response that George and Ron were giving just sparked something inside of me. I think your question is extremely important. Yet at the same time, I don't think that a lot of us understand the seriousness of the principles of Mayotte. Because the other part of that is this. We talk about, and we have been trained to talk about tribes. Tribes are divisive. You are an African or you're European. This is not about the individual groups of people who are African or the individual groups or who are Europeans, like a difference between Germans and those who are from France. The mindset of France and Germany are the same. The basic cultural guidance of the African with thousands of languages and the languages in what we call it. What is it? Dialects being spoken. The cultural is the same. So how can that be? It's only because it's spiritual. We are not to do anything that's divisive, which means that we cannot afford to have an African mindset while we are talking and live with a European mindset when we're individual, when we are in our individual settings. It doesn't work like that. That is no different than pretending to embrace the power, the leadership, the nurturing, the guidance of the goddess. And as soon as we are separate from each other, we revert to seeing God as being a man, or the same God that we were taught to believe in that doesn't exist. We have to be consistent, not just when we are teaching, not just when we are in a setting where we are learning. We have to be consistent in our lives. We have to be the ones who put this into action every single day, because just like our speech are putting things in the macro, so does our actions. When you speak on your job or when you're speaking to a friend, you are putting things in the macro. So this has to be your life, not a part of your life, but this has to be the guiding force in your life. And from this come all types of healings to all of us. And I don't know why I feel so strongly about saying this evening, but I believe that periodically we're going to have to repeat this in some form or another. This is not a game. I'm done. Thank you.
Yes, Pastor, I just want to concur with you. Even in the reading, you know, she talks about, you know, the aspect of death. And again, with regards to principles, you know, that was just part of what she was stating in terms of not looking at it, you know, in terms of, you know, a God where there's this visual image, but the most important thing is understanding and a way of life, as you say, in terms of just carrying out the principles in terms of morality and dealing with the truth. So
being committed.
So Pastor, so what I'm taking is that the 42 laws, we're not to just like, let's memorize these 42 laws and let's follow these laws, or did I follow this law? If we truly, so you're saying if we truly, these are part of our lives, this is how we are to live, then it's just, it's our way of life.
Yes.
And everything that we do, we don't have to think about whether or not we're following them. It is our way of life.
Right, Levon. When it's your way of life, you don't have to memorize it. You just have to have a desire to live accordingly. And guess what? There is no way in the world that you cannot live accordingly and not know it. You know right from wrong. You know when you're mistreating people. You know when you're being arrogant. You know when you're lying. You know when you're playing both sides against the middle. You know when you're manipulating people. You know when you're trying to play people one against another. You know when you're on your job, whether or not you are working or not working and pretending that you are. You know on your job when you are to be the bigger person as opposed to always being the victim. You know all of this. That's what I'm saying. And Levon, you hit it on the head. It is not about remembering something like the 10 Commandments or the 23rd Psalm. It's about living.
Right. And that's what I was going to say. Like in church, when I was younger, and you learned the 10 Commandments, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I used to always say, okay, or my grandmother or somebody was like, well, you know, you're going to go to hell because you didn't one of the 10 Commandments. So it was like a memorization of them. It wasn't whether I really was living by them or whatever. I'm just trying to memorize them. But with the Ma'at principles, the 42, it's just like when you first used to say, we would speak, I am Elohim. And it was like, well, what does that really mean? Am I really Elohim? Am I really living am I living as Elohim? Am I Elohim? I shouldn't say am I living as I am Elohim. And so it's just how I live my life each and every moment, and not just how I live in the actions, but also the thoughts. I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that deals with the virtues. When we talk about, you know, the 10 virtues of the Christian Kemetic, you know, teachings, you know, it refers to, you know, the main three. It talks about your thoughts. You know, it talks about the words, you know, that we speak, what we're thinking, and more importantly, as you're saying again, Pastor, your actions. You know, how are you walking day to day? How are you, you know what I mean, approaching, you know, each day that we wake up, we have the opportunity to receive, you know, from the universe. But now how does that apply to you, you know, walking the walk, so to speak, in terms of your aura or how people perceive you, And I think that's dealing with, with the truth.
It's life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think too
I
many
think
times. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Pastor. I'm sorry.
I think too many times um, we hear the words like we do in school or like we did in Sunday school. And then we go out and do whatever what we want to do as opposed to change it. There's a church on every corner and nothing changes. I remember riding with Georgia. We were in Philly, and I was counting the churches on that we passed within a 2-block area, and I'm like, and nothing changes, because the people who's supposed to be changing things, all of them moved to the suburbs. Nobody lives in the neighborhoods anymore, and those who do live in the neighborhoods don't care. This is not that. This is the Kemetan society. This is the Cushite community. This is the place of the sacred priesthood. This is the mindset of the African. This is the action of a Kabbalah. You can't change the European mindset if you are not true to the actions of a Kabbalah. If you're not true to the principles of Mayat. And you cannot be true to the principles of Mayat if you do not respect femininity, because Mayat is feminine. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It does. Any other questions, guys? Thoughts? I think that the difficulty has been our upbringing and all the things that we have been taught, all the things that religion, education-wise, all these things in us, and this is not something you treat that way. And as we've flushed and exposed things that have been told to us to be true, it's a lot. It's a lot. Nobody's saying it isn't. But this is to me, committing to pastor or committing to George, or this is committing to me. This is me committing to me. So, I mean, I love what we do. And all the things that we learn and see and experience, So make a commitment to yourself. Away from everything.
Excuse me, I'm going to step away for a few moments, okay?
Okay. Is there anybody, thoughts or questions?
Yeah, Ron, I have some thoughts, and I think, when you say it applies to you, and just like it applies to me, but I think that I have to say to myself, I am responsible to know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that, again, we've been, again, blessed to be able to hear, the teachings of all who have been on the calls and people sharing their experience and strengths and hope. And I think Pastor has given us, the opportunity to appreciate his perspectives with regards to, the major events of human evolution. He talks, to us in terms of, religion and how that has an impact us, and even the politics. And I think it just comes down to, again, as he mentioned, I think we talked about it last week is that, you know, again, don't just trust what someone says. You know what I mean? Do your when I say do your research, you know, read. You know what I mean? You know, let's try to understand what it means to be a community. You know, because I think sometimes we just get caught up in our own, you know, ways of wanting to do what you want to do for self. But in the, you know, the book, it talked about community, and it says community is the spirit, the guiding light. You know what I mean? You know, other tribe whereby people come together in order to fulfill a specific purpose, to help others fulfill their purpose, and to take care of one another. And I think that that was, you know, something that I highlighted, because the goal of the community is make sure that each member of the community is heard and is properly giving the spirits he or she has been brought into this world. So we all bring substance. You know, we all bring, you know, our skills or our talents, and that's what, you know, constitutes the community, where we all can partake in being able to share how do we deal with what we're dealing now with the storms, how we're dealing with what's going on in terms of the election. And I think that there are those who may be dealing with some emotions. There may be some, you know, who are dealing with, you know, some trauma, or dealing with matters that it's important for us to realize that, again, let us not take it privately, but how can we reach out to be able to appreciate the importance of our emotional regulations with it. You know, how do we stay calm under those kind of circumstances? You know, what is our impulse control? You know, and so I think there's things that, you know, when we talk about our inner strength, you know, this is what I think the book has brought out too, is that your voice is important. And I think yesterday someone shared, you know, something in reference to their job and how they may be a counselor or giving, you know, some advisement with regards to helping someone through their hardship or crucible. And this is the gift that we're blessed with, when we can be able to share it in harmony and in unity, you know, for the empowerment of, you know, mankind and loving kindness, and, you know, some of the fruits of the spirit that we've spoken about. So those, again, are some thoughts that was on my mind I wanted to share again. I'm done.
Beautifully said, George. Thank you. Yeah. Anyone else? Also questions? Well, maybe this would be a good place to take a little pause then, and not go into the book tonight. Just reflect on what we've talked about. If no one else has anything, trust that we're in a unique place. We are. For ourselves, for the community, for the entire universe, we're in a unique place. So what do you want from this? What do you want this to look like? Not trying to shape it, but I mean as George talked about, your virtues, your desires, your heart. What do you want from this? So thank you. I've enjoyed the evening. Look forward to Saturday. I think this is a good place to maybe stop and continue to pray for those who are not only here in the upstate, who may have been having some hardship due to the storm, but globally, as I think Audrey and Barb have pointed out to us on several occasions, these storms are all over the place. And I'm not just talking about weather-wise. There's upheaval all over the place. And we are in a unique place ourselves to bring about love and kindness to make this a community of all. Okay. Again, thoughts or questions before we leave? Okay. You guys have a good evening. Have a safe week. Look forward to Saturday. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
everybody. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.